Hi, I'm Jeanette with Kimberbell, and this tutorial is about doing the triangles in Cuties Volume 2. Today we're making the July block. I'm going to make this in an 8x12 or 9x14 hoop size, but if you are making this in a smaller hoop size, we do have instructions for that in the background quilting instructions. We also have a video tutorial you can refer to called 5x7 hoop instructions for Kimberbell Cuties Volume 2 background quilting triangle blocks. Now that video shows a block from Volume 2 January through June, but the same exact process applies to Volume 2 July through December. So we're starting out today with our background piece of fabric that is 13 by 13. And in order to prepare this fabric for the triangle, we need to subcut this block. And so I'm just aligning. We're going to cut corner to corner, right, like this. And you can see there is a cutting diagram in several places in the book that show you how to cut that from triangle to triangle, corner to corner. And you can see I have this one that is all the way prepared. And we just take that square and we have two separate triangles just cut on the diagonal. We only need one of these for each triangle corner. So that is prepared and ready to go. And then so we're going to do the same thing with our batting. If we look at the instructions in the background quilting PDF file that comes with the download, and it calls out a 12 by 12 piece of project batting. And again, we're cutting that from corner to corner so that we have a triangle piece of batting. So the last preparation step that we need to make is getting the blanket ready. The first thing we're going to do is iron this. We're going to fold this from corner to corner in half and get a nice crisp fold on that corner. And then we're going to take a frayed preventative product like Fray Block, Fray Check, any of those will work. I have Fray Check with me today. And we're just going to take and place just a little bit along the edges of this, just like that. So all you need is just a little bit, and you can see it is turning my fabric a little darker, but when it dries clear. So I've done that edge, and you'll just want to do the same thing to all four edges of the blanket fabric. And I have one prepped and ready to go. So you can see that it's dried, it's clear. There's just a little bit of stiffness to the edges of this blanket fabric, but that's going to help prevent it from fraying and just keep a nice, crisp, tidy look to our blanket hanging out of our basket. So now we're ready to go to our embroidery machine, and we're going to need to align our files. So we're taking two files. We're taking our quilting file and our triangle file, and we're stacking them on top of each other. There is some alignment that we will need to do. There's some lines in the triangle file that we're going to align with the quilting file. And you can see a diagram of that on page 30 in your instructions in the block by block quilting instructions section. It just has a diagram of exactly what I'm talking about. So let's go to the machine and show you. So we're on the machine, we're looking at the Picnic in the Park embroidery file. And I just wanted to point out a couple of lines that are really important in this file that we're going to use to align with the quilting file. We have these two lines pointing at the bottom. That's going to help us align with the bottom of the triangle. And then at the very top of the block, we have this line right there with the tick mark in the center. That line is also really important for alignment. So I want to show you those two lines. So we're going to go out of this file. We're actually going to pull up our triangle quilting file first. Now there are two triangle quilting files that work exactly the same. There's the 8x12 and the 9x14 file. Just pick whichever one fits in your machine with your hoop. You can do the 9x14 great. If you can't, and you can do the 8x12, that's why we made the file. The quilting is exactly the same. You end up with the same result. So I'm just going to do the 8x12 today, even though we could do the 9x14, and I'm pulling that and setting that. Now I'm going to add the Picnic in the Park file on top of that. So we are going to add that. Now we need to take this file and we're going to need to rotate it and move it. So we're going to have to rotate it 90 degrees to the left so that it aligns. We're looking at these lines and that top line that I showed you on the picnic in the park file, and we just need to move it over. We're moving the whole file to the left so that those lines line up exactly with the quilting lines. So we need the top one and the bottom ones to align. Oh, I'll move back one more. So right there, that is aligned and ready to go. So we're going to say okay and go straight into our embroidery, and we are ready to stitch the batting placement line in our background quilting file. So I am following along in the instructions in the PDF that came with my background quilting information in the triangle section, and I have just stitched the batting placement line, and now I'm going to place my project batting completely covering that placement line, and we're just going to tape that in place. Okay, ready to take this to the machine and stitch the batting tack down line. We have stitched the batting tack down line. We're trimming the batting close to the stitch line. Okay, next we're ready to stitch the fabric placement line. All right, we've stitched the fabric placement line, and we're going to take our prepared triangle and place it completely covering that line, or just making sure it's covering it in all directions. We're taping this in place. You're ready to stitch the background tack down line. Let's stitch the background quilting stitch. Stitch the strawberry placement line. We have stitched the strawberry placement line. We're taking the strawberry fabric, placing it right side up, covering that line. Add a couple pieces of paper tape to help hold it in place. And we are ready to stitch the strawberry tack down line. Okay, we are ready to trim the fabric close to the stitch line. I trimmed around the strawberry close to the stitch line, and next we're going to stitch the strawberry decorative outline. So we are going to stitch the straw fill one with the same color. Okay, we're going to stitch the straw 2 fill. We've stitched both straw fills, and at this point we just want to check and make sure we have any jump stitches in the straw that we want to trim. And my straw is looking great. So next we're going to change our thread to the yellow, and we're going to stitch the soda fill. We're ready to stitch the soda pop placement line. And I've changed my thread to the blue thread. So okay, we're going to place the soda pop clear vinyl completely covering that placement line. Tape it in place. And when you're taping this in place, you want to make sure your tape is outside of the stitch area. Sometimes the tape's a little bit hard to get off that vinyl. So we can see exactly where it's going to stitch. We're ready to take this to the machine and stitch the soda pop tack down line. Okay, we're ready to trim the vinyl close to the stitch line. And trimming vinyl is just like fabric, it's a little stiffer. You want to just make small cuts. You can see I'm not like closing my scissors all the way. I'm kind of keeping a cut a little scooch to try and have a cleaner looking cut along the edge. And you'll just want to continue that around the entire soda pop bottle. So we're going to continue placing and trimming fabric and stitching all of the details until we get to machine step 20 in your instructions, which says stitch the blanket placement line. So we're gonna go ahead and get all the way to that point and show you how to place the blanket fabric. All right, we've gone and stitched machine step 20, and on here you can see I just changed to the lighter thread color, and that stitch right above that satin stitch is the placement line for the blanket. That's what we're looking at. So I have my prepared blanket fabric, and we're going to go ahead and just unfold this fabric, and the crease that's in the fabric, we're going to align the crease right on that placement line. And so we're just going to make sure that it stays on the placement line the whole way, and also that we're placing it centered on the basket. So we're just going to tape this in place, making sure it's centered. We're just ready to stitch that blanket tack down line. Okay, we've stitched the blanket tack down line. We're going to go ahead and remove the tape from the blanket fabric, and we're going to press this blanket over with our iron. But first we're going to make sure that we're using a pressing cloth with this, because of the vinyl on the pop bottle will melt if we iron that. So we're going to iron the blanket back down in place, and just have a cloth to protect that vinyl pop bottle. That's just going to keep that blanket just right where we want it. And then the last step we need to stitch are some trimming guidelines. So I'm going to go ahead and change my thread color so that we can see those trimming guidelines. We do want to stitch them even though we have the fabric tack down line. All of the stitching that we've done since we've stitched that stitch might have pulled in our fabric just a little bit. So we're going to stitch those trimming guidelines just so that we know we're trimming this exactly where it needs to be. All right, we have stitched our trimming guidelines, and you can see they did not exactly match up with that background tack down line. So it's always good to stitch those trimming guides again. We're ready to remove our block from the hoop. So we're going to use a rotary cutter and a ruler And if you want to draw these lines first, draw out these lines. That's totally fine using the trimming guides that we just stitched as a guide. We're just lining that line right up against the edge of the ruler. And we can just draw that line to extend clear into the corner. The same thing on the other side, we're lining that line up. And the last line. Lining that up. So I've marked, and that will show me exactly where we can trim with the ruler. This tick mark, don't remove that yet. It is important when you're sewing together. That shows you the center of this whole side, because you're going to be lining that up with the center of the border when you stitch that together. So knowing exactly where the center is will be very helpful. So we're ready to go ahead and trim this down. Right, we have finished making this triangle. You need to make 4 of these triangles for every cutie. So make 4 identical triangles just like this. Join us for our next video segment talking about borders.